Good technology will go a long way in helping us face harsher summers and longer, more intense bushfire seasons. A homegrown aerial mapping and intelligence system has been providing crucial support to the recovery effort on Kangaroo Island. Former CFS volunteer Dr. Paul Dare has been developing the technology for 15 years. He's had the support of UniSA's Venture Catalyst Space Program as well, and he joins me now. Welcome, Dr. Dare.
Thank you very much.
Now, tell us about the FireFlight system and what prompted you to create it.
I run a small spatial technology company in Adelaide, have been now for a long time, and used to be a volunteer firefighter with CFS and spent many days out on the fire ground. And I just saw an opportunity to try and combine the aerial mapping technology that we've been developing over the years with some of the challenges that we used to face out on the fire ground. So we've been developing the fire mapping technology in the background because it's not our core business and we don't get any income from it at this stage. So it's a personal project that I've been wanting to pursue. And we've got to the point now where we're pretty happy with the technology. It's doing what we want it to do. We can fly over a fire at high altitude, capture imagery of that fire, make a map out of that imagery and download that to folks on the ground in real time. This year it's been, dare I say, interesting. I don't think anyone expected to see the level of fires that we've seen this year, and now it's suddenly become all that more pertinent.
Yeah. Although there was a report out a decade or so ago that suggested we might start seeing more intense fires into the future as climate change comes about.
Absolutely, and I think I probably saw the report you were referring to. It actually mentioned 2020 as being the year when things might begin to change, and we've certainly seen that. And for a few years now, we've been working with colleagues in California and also in Canada, and they're seeing the same thing. They're seeing the fires are getting more and more intense, more widespread. The fire seasons are getting longer. And this has been a big motivating force for us to really try and develop this technology as fast as we can and get it out there as soon as we can, because we really want to do something, because the fire is not going to go away, unfortunately. And anything we can do to help will be, I'm sure, beneficial.
So you've been using it in Kangaroo Island?
We deployed a system down there at just about the same time that the Army mobilised down there with their reservists and their full-timers. We connected with an Army intelligence unit that came down from Darwin to help with the Kangaroo Island fires. In the first few days of their deployment, they had very little intel. They didn't have very much information about what was going on actually on the ground on KI. So we flew down there. We generated some fire maps over some of the major fires at that time on those particular days, and we delivered those fire maps to the Australian Army, and then they used that in their planning and their logistics for how they were going to deploy their resources. After a few days, they managed to get the Air Force on board, but then the Air Force went out and took over that role for them, but we managed to get in there first and just help them out just while they were still getting everything set up.
How much of a difference does it make to have something like this compared with what we were relying on before?
Well, when we say relying on before, at the moment there's very little, let's call it intel, about fires when the fire is actually occurring. Fire can be a very, very dynamic environment. It can change very quickly. Fires can move incredibly fast. And we really see a need for being able to get timely data to people on the ground to help those people make decisions, whether they're CFS volunteers or whether they're locals in the community or whether they're the Australian Army. Everyone needs good intel in order to make good decisions. If there's no other capability there at the moment, then we see that we're filling a gap in that process.
Because many of us who live in the Adelaide Hills or in fire-affected communities get very nervous having to constantly refresh maps from the CFS, which are dependent on several sources of information. So could this potentially help us?
I would hope so. We see this as just another source of information that gets fed into that process. We're currently talking to CFS about the technology. They're aware of what we're doing and they've got an interest in what we're doing. We would like down the track to build our technology into some reliable systems where we can actually take the imagery that we collect and deliver it to the right people at the right time in a way that works for those people. And whether those people are people in the community or whether they're volunteers or whether they're full-time firefighters, we need to work out who requires the data and how to get it to them in the best possible way. Because, as you say, when we live in the Adelaide Hills, we're having to refresh maps when we're not sure about how up-to-date that map actually is. But yet we could be making life-changing decisions based on that information. And our philosophy is, look, the more information that we can feed into that, then the better the decision-making process is going to be. How
can we find out a little bit more about the FireFlight system?
Oh, look, we've got a website, which is www.fire.aero. That's AERO. We're also closely connected with the Innovation and Collaboration Centre at UniSA, which is a program to help technology startups, especially those which work in the space sector, and we're kind of on the edge of the space sector. And there's lots of information on the ICC website at UniSA as well.
Great. Well, all the best with it, and thanks so much for your time today.
No worries. Good to talk to you.